You see, the moment you begin to focus your entire attention on others, you fundamentally lose sight of yourself. It is a curious and tragic displacement of consciousness. You are constantly projecting your awareness outward, like a beam of light cast onto a turbulent sea, expecting to find the answers, the validation, the very definition of your purpose, out there in the form of a successful peer, a critical parent, or a societal benchmark. But what if all along the map, the treasure, and the key were residing precisely where you weren't looking? What if the whole edifice of external seeking was merely an elaborate distraction, designed to keep you from the immense, silent truth of your own interiority? The more you look to others, the more you allow their fleeting opinions, their shifting expectations, and their arbitrary judgments to define your direction, the more you lose touch with your own intrinsic rhythm, your own authentic truth. We are not here merely to live as supporting actors in the dramas of other people's expectations. We are not here to mold ourselves into a shape that society deems palatable. We are here profoundly, mysteriously, to explore the essence of who we are, to delve into the immense, undiscovered landscape of our own being. This pervasive cultural injunction that we must constantly compare ourselves to others, that we must tirelessly mold ourselves into something a collective, anonymous society says we should be, it is the grand illusion. The world, with its thousand demands, its clamorous media, its endless scrolling feeds, will always, always demand your attention. It will pull you in 1,000 magnetic directions, promising satisfaction, success, and acceptance. It is a great, dazzling dance of distraction. But what happens truly when you stop the music? What happens when you halt the frantic, anxious pursuit of approval? When you stop trying to be the idealized, airbrushed reflection that others expect? When you stop defining your worth by the reflection in the judgmental eyes of others? In that silence, in that stillness, the silence that is not empty but full of potential, you begin to understand. You begin to realize that you are not a separate, skin-encapsulated ego tossed against a hostile world. You are a part of it, flowing with it, a unique, shimmering wave of the ocean. When you make the conscious, difficult decision to turn inward, you stop trying to control everything outside of you. You stop the constant, exhausting striving to arrange the world to your liking. You begin to accept. You begin to simply be present with yourself, just as you are, without qualification or apology. The mind that is constantly reaching outward, demanding validation, begins to calm, like sediment settling in a glass of muddy water. And in that calm, you find a deeper, unbreakable connection to the foundational truth of who you are. The key is not to be consumed by the noise around you, but to listen intently to the quiet within. Only then can you truly understand your own sacred desires, your own unique path, unmarred by external suggestion. The distractions of the world will never cease, but your true power lies in your unwavering ability to not be swayed by them. When you focus inward, you begin to understand that you are the source, not the reflection. You are the creator of your own experience, not a mere bystander subject to the fleeting whims of the external world. By focusing inward, you free yourself from the crushing limitations of external definitions. You become unbound by what others think, what they say, or what they demand you should be. You are free to simply be, to exist fully, to live in the magnificent fullness of who you are. We live in a world steeped in the mythology of external contingency. From the moment we are capable of understanding speech, we are subtly and unsubtle taught to look outside ourselves for all the answers that matter. We are groomed to seek validation from parents, teachers, peers, and institutions. Our inherent worth is often measured based on external accomplishments: the grade, the title, the salary, the size of a house, the number of likes. It is an insidious system where our fundamental sense of identity is always contingent on what others think, say, or expect from us. Yet in this endless, breathless pursuit of approval and recognition, we tragically overlook the blindingly simple truth that everything we truly seek, peace, fulfillment, purpose, is already within us. The world teaches us to focus outwardly, believing that the external environment will supply our sense of self. But the great life-altering realization is that the key to self-understanding, the key to truly living, lies entirely in the paradoxical act of turning inward and focusing solely on our inner landscape. When we continually look outside for answers, we inevitably disconnect from our own inner wisdom. There is a crushing volume of noise surrounding us, a cacophony filled with the judgmental opinions of strangers, the unrealistic expectations of society, the unattainable standards set by media, and even the subtle, often well-intentioned, judgments of those closest to us. The more we allow these external voices to infiltrate and shape our sense of self, the more we sever contact with the quiet, steady whisper within, the voice of our own intuition, our own authentic desire, and our own profound truth. It is easy to get lost in this dizzying world of external influence. Our minds are built to mimic, to adapt, to seek harmony with the tribe. But it is only by choosing to turn inward, by deliberately shifting our focus to our own inner landscape, that we begin the sacred process of reconnecting with our true essence. When you focus on yourself in this profound sense, it is not an act of selfishness or dismissal of others. On the contrary, it is the highest form of responsibility. It is recognizing that you are the one who holds the key to your happiness, your fulfillment, and your purpose. External circumstances, the opinions of distant commentators, the judgments of your past, these are entirely beyond your control. You cannot, no matter how hard you strive, shape the world around you in a way that guarantees constant approval or perpetual satisfaction. But what you can control is your inner world, your thoughts, your beliefs, your reactions, and your core sense of self. By focusing inward, you begin to realize that your happiness and your worth are not dependent on what others think or do, but on your own radical acceptance and understanding of yourself. The search for external validation is a never-ending cycle of depletion. It is like trying to fill an infinite vessel with transient, small things that can never truly satisfy. No matter how many achievements you accumulate, no matter how many people approve of your actions, there will always be that lingering, hollow feeling of emptiness if you have not first established a solid connection with your own being. The approval of others is fleeting. It is a ghost that vanishes in the morning light. It can never, ever replace the immovable sense of peace and contentment that is generated from within. When you focus on yourself, you begin to discover that the very thing you've been desperately searching for has been residing patiently inside you all along. This inward focus initiates a process of profound recalibration. It allows you to cultivate a deeper, more intimate, and more honest relationship with yourself. It is about learning, often for the first time, to listen to your own needs, to honor your own feelings, and to trust the subtle, complex mechanism of your own intuition. So often we look to others, to gurus, to self-help books, to partners, to tell us what we should feel, what we should do, or who we should be. This external seeking only keeps us perpetually stuck in a cycle of seeking and never finding, a permanent state of dependency. When you focus inward, you open the door to a deeper connection with your authentic desires and immutable values. You begin to understand that your emotions, your thoughts, and your experiences are valid because they are yours, and that you possess the inherent ability to navigate them in a way that aligns perfectly with your truth. This process of focusing inward also brings immense clarity. When you stop allowing the opinions of others to dictate your choices, you liberate yourself from a confusion that inevitably arises when you try to be 1,000 things to 1,000 people. It is like stepping out of a dense, confusing fog and into the clear, sharp light of your own understanding. You begin to recognize what truly matters to you, what resonates with your soul's deepest calling, and what brings you authentic, resonant peace. The loud, distracting demands of the world fade into the distant background as you turn your attention toward the singular, reliable guidance of your own inner compass. Focusing on yourself, paradoxically, does not mean you become disconnected from the world or indifferent to others. Quite the opposite. It means you recognize the profound truth that to be truly present for others, you must first be fully present for yourself. How can you offer unconditional love, grounded compassion, or stable support to anyone else if you are not firmly in touch with your own heart? How can you share your unique gifts with the world if you have not taken the time to understand and cherish what those gifts truly are? By focusing on yourself, you give yourself the essential time and sacred space to cultivate your own well-being, to heal old wounds, to grow beyond past limitations, and to flourish into your full potential. Only from this place of unshakable inner strength and clarity can you truly offer something meaningful, stable, and untainted by neediness to those around you. Furthermore, when you focus on yourself, you are freed from the crushing, exhausting pressure to conform to the expectations of others. You stop living in reaction to the world, a desperate sprint to please, and start living in response to your own truth, a grounded, intentional movement. The weight of others' opinions and judgments, the whispers of shoulds and oughts, no longer holds power over you. Instead, you move through life with an effortless sense of freedom and authenticity, knowing that your worth is not, and never has been, determined by anyone else, but by your own self-generated sense of being. This focus on the internal also allows you to fiercely embrace your uniqueness. We are all born with our own singular set of gifts, perspectives, and paths to walk. Yet, in a culture that often values bland conformity over vibrant individuality, it is easy to feel the pressure to fit in, to be like everyone else, in order to gain acceptance. But by focusing on yourself, you begin to appreciate the terrifying, magnificent beauty in your own individuality. You realize that your differences are precisely what make you special, and that you have something uniquely valuable to offer the world simply by being yourself, radically and uncompromisingly. This acceptance is profoundly liberating. It enables you to live with greater confidence, knowing that you are exactly as you are meant to be. We live in a world that places a great, suffocating emphasis on conformity. From childhood, we are taught that fitting in and meeting societal expectations are essential prerequisites for success, happiness, and acceptance. We are subtly encouraged to look at our neighbors, observe their actions, and blindly follow suit. We are told to walk the paths others have successfully traversed, to adopt the values others have deemed important, and to shape our lives based on the judgments and standards of the prevailing social structure. This creates a collective, gravitational pressure that often compels us to suppress our own individuality and cram ourselves into a predefined, often mediocre, notion of what the good life should look like. But the truth lies in the revolutionary recognition that we don't need to conform to anyone's expectations but our own. What if, instead of struggling to fit into a mold, we learn to celebrate our uniqueness and walk our own path, regardless of the whispers and shouts of the crowd? The desire to fit in and be accepted is a natural human impulse. We are social creatures, and belonging to a group has been crucial for survival for millennia. However, the dangerous side of this natural instinct is that we can easily lose sight of who we truly are in our desperate attempts to gain tribal approval. Yet, it is precisely in stillness that we discover the essence of who we truly are. And it is in embracing quiet that we come to understand our own reliable truth. True peace, the kind that comes from an internal, secure place, is not found in the hectic, reactive hustle of daily life, but in the moments of silence and presence that we deliberately carve out for ourselves. When we embrace stillness, we grant ourselves permission to step away from the crushing noise of a world and to deliberately tune into our own inner world. This is not simply about physical quiet. It is about creating a vast, unhurried space within ourselves where we can listen deeply to our own thoughts, process our own emotions, and honor our own desires. In a culture where we are constantly told what to think, what to feel, and what to do, stillness allows us to reclaim the power to make our own decisions and to trust our own counsel. It is only when we step away from the constant, external chatter that we can hear the soft, persistent whisper of our own soul, guiding us toward what truly matters. In these moments of stillness, we are able to clear away the mental clutter that clouds our judgment and connect with the deeper, ancient wisdom that resides within us. Stillness is often profoundly misunderstood as a passive state, a form of intellectual laziness. But it is in fact an active, powerful act of self-care and self-definition. It is in these quiet moments that we recharge, restore, and reset our nervous systems. When we're constantly moving and reacting to the external world, we drain our vital energy and become reactive rather than responsive, living life based on the whims of external forces. But when we stop, when we create space for stillness, we begin to move from a place of centeredness and clarity. We begin to make decisions based on our true needs, not based on the pressures or expectations of others. In stillness, we reconnect with our core sense of self and our purpose, free from the distractions that habitually lead us astray. In this stillness, we also gain immense clarity. The mind, when left to its own devices, easily becomes overwhelmed by the constant flow of information, thoughts, and competing emotions. We are constantly processing information both consciously and subconsciously, and it can feel like there is no space for true, objective reflection. But in moments of stillness, the mind slows down, and we are able to gain a deeper, undistorted understanding of ourselves and our circumstances. This clarity allows us to see things as they truly are, free from the distortions created by fear, doubt, and anxiety. In the quiet, we can hear our intuition more clearly, guiding us toward the right decisions and actions for our lives. Stillness also helps us cultivate a deeper sense of presence. In today's hyper-distracted world, we are habitually disconnected from the present moment. Our minds are often focused on the past, regretting what we did or didn't do, or they are focused on the future, anxiously worrying about what might happen. This constant state of distraction pulls us away from the here and now, causing us to miss the beauty and richness of the present moment. Stillness allows us to fully reconnect with the present, to fully experience and appreciate the moment we are in without the heavy burden of past regrets or future fears. In the present moment, we are truly free to experience life as it is without judgment, without expectation, and without the neurotic need for anything to change. It is in this radical presence that we find profound peace, because we realize that everything we fundamentally need is right here, right now. As we embrace stillness and presence, we also begin to understand the singular power of our breath. The breath is the most reliable anchor that connects us to the present moment and to our own bodies. When we feel overwhelmed or disconnected, we can always return to the breath as an immediate source of grounding and calm. The simple, conscious act of breathing deeply can help us release tension, clear our minds, and bring us back into the present. By focusing on our breath, we move out of the constant, frenetic chatter of the mind and into the quiet stillness of our bodies. This awareness of the breath is a powerful, portable tool for creating peace, because it reminds us that we have the inherent ability to center ourselves at any time, no matter what chaos is swirling around us. In moments of stillness, we also develop the crucial ability to listen to ourselves, to others, and to the subtle music of the world around us. When we are caught up in the noise and distractions of daily life, we inevitably miss the subtle messages that are constantly being sent our way, messages from our intuition, from the body, or from the people we interact with. In stillness, we become exquisitely attuned to these messages, and we are able to listen with greater awareness and sensitivity. Listening in this sense is not just about hearing words, it is about truly understanding the deeper, unspoken meaning behind what is being communicated. It is about being present and engaged without judgment or distraction. This kind of listening opens up a deeper, more authentic connection with ourselves and others. When we allow ourselves to embrace stillness and presence, we also create the space for healing. Our bodies, minds, and hearts are constantly processing experiences, emotions, and memories. Often, we don't give ourselves the time or space to fully process these things, and they become trapped in our systems, manifesting as tension, chronic stress, or illness. But in stillness, we give ourselves permission to heal. We create the space for our bodies to rest and rejuvenate, for our minds to quiet and reset, and for our hearts to release old wounds and burdens. Healing occurs when we allow ourselves to be still and to listen to the gentle, honest reports that our bodies and minds are providing. It is through this process of stillness that we are able to release what no longer serves us and make room for genuine growth and transformation. Finally, stillness is not just about creating peace for ourselves. It is also about creating peace in the world around us. In a world that is filled with noise, chaos, and conflict, it is easy to become caught up in the drama and tension. But when we cultivate a deep, immovable stillness within ourselves, we become a calm center in the storm. Our presence alone can have a profound, anchoring effect on the people around us. When we are truly at peace with ourselves, we naturally radiate that peace to others, creating an environment where others feel safe, supported, and heard. Stillness, then, becomes a powerful tool for creating harmony in our relationships and in our wider communities. In conclusion, stillness is not a luxury or an indulgence. It is a necessity for living a peaceful, authentic, and fulfilling life. By embracing stillness and presence, we reconnect with our true selves, gain profound clarity, initiate deep healing, and forge genuine connections with others. In a world that constantly demands our attention and energy, stillness is the most powerful act of self-care and empowerment. It is through stillness that we find peace. And it is through peace that we are able to navigate the complexities of life with grace, wisdom, and understanding. Living in a world where external validation plays a dominant role in how we measure our worth is an incredibly exhausting and fundamentally limiting experience. From an early age, we are taught to seek approval from others, from our family, our peers, our teachers, or society at large. We are conditioned to believe that our value is determined by how others perceive us, and as a result, we often find ourselves desperately seeking external validation to feel fundamentally good about who we are. This external validation creates a profound sense of dependence, as if our self-worth is perpetually contingent upon meeting the shifting expectations of others. We may go through life trying to prove ourselves, constantly seeking approval from outside sources. But we rarely stop to ask ourselves why we feel this insatiable need, or what it would truly be like to free ourselves from this relentless cycle. The truth is, when we rely on external validation to define our worth, we give up our personal power and compromise our very authenticity. Seeking validation from others is, at its root, a natural human desire. We all want to be accepted, to feel loved, and to know that we matter. However, the danger arises when we begin to shape our actions, our decisions, and even our most fundamental beliefs around the desire for external approval. When we live our lives according to the expectations of others, we immediately start to disconnect from our own inner truth. We begin to act in ways that are not true to ourselves simply because we want to be liked or accepted. We suppress our true feelings, our honest beliefs, and our deepest desires because they do not align with what is considered acceptable by the people around us. In doing so, we essentially hand over our power, allowing others to control how we feel about ourselves. This need for validation manifests in countless ways. For some, it is the constant need to seek approval from a critical family member. For others, it is about gaining recognition in the workplace or, most pervasively today, on social media. In our digital age, the likes, comments, and shares on our posts can easily become the most immediate, dangerous measure of our self-worth. But the fundamental problem with seeking validation in this way is that it is fleeting and unreliable. A social media like provides a momentary, addictive boost, but is short-lived and never truly fulfills the deeper, persistent need for self-acceptance. In fact, it often leaves us wanting more, thus perpetuating the vicious cycle of seeking external validation. The issue with relying on external validation is that it places the control of our happiness, our confidence, and our sense of worth entirely in the hands of others. When we let others define our value, we become vulnerable to their opinions, their judgments, and their expectations. If someone disapproves of us, we feel like we've failed or that we're not good enough. If we don't receive the recognition or praise we desire, we feel invisible or unimportant. This creates an unstable foundation for our sense of self-worth, as it is constantly fluctuating depending on the unpredictable opinions of others. The result is a perpetual cycle of seeking approval, only to find that it never fully satisfies the deeper, spiritual longing for self-acceptance. Breaking free from the paralyzing need for external validation requires a monumental shift in mindset. It involves recognizing that our worth is not determined by what others think of us, but by who we are at our core, the intrinsic, unconditional value of our being. When we begin to define our worth based on our internal values, our beliefs, and our intentional actions, we reclaim our personal power. We no longer feel the desperate need to seek validation from others because we know, deep down, that we are enough as we are. This shift is challenging, as we have been conditioned to seek external approval from a young age. However, the more we practice living authentically and embracing our own inherent worth, the easier it becomes to let go of the need for validation from the outside world. To truly free ourselves from the need for external validation, we must first learn to trust ourselves. This means actively letting go of the fear of judgment and embracing our imperfections, the whole messy reality of our humanity. It means accepting that we do not need to meet anyone else's arbitrary standards of success or beauty to feel good about ourselves. Trusting ourselves means listening to our intuition, honoring our inner desires, and making decisions based on what feels right and true for us, rather than what others expect or want. When we trust ourselves, we stop looking outside for approval and start looking inward for guidance. We begin to realize that we are the only ones who can reliably define our worth. A critical, non-negotiable part of this process is learning to accept ourselves unconditionally. Self-acceptance is not about being perfect or always getting things right. It is about embracing who we are, flaws and all. It is about recognizing that we are worthy of love and respect simply because we exist, not because of anything we do or accomplish. When we accept ourselves fully, we no longer feel the desperate need to prove ourselves to others. We are free to be authentic and to live in alignment with our true selves without worrying about whether others approve of us or not. This doesn't mean we should isolate ourselves or disregard the opinions of those we genuinely respect and care about. It's healthy to seek guidance and feedback from trusted friends or mentors. However, the key is to recognize that the final authority on how we live our lives must come from within. We must not base our self-worth on the fluctuating opinions of others, nor should we shape our lives solely to meet someone else's expectations. We must honor our own voice and make choices that align with our deepest values, regardless of what others think. Living without the need for external validation is an incredibly empowering experience. When we stop seeking approval from others, we begin to feel more confident, more authentic, and more profoundly at peace with ourselves. We no longer waste energy trying to please everyone or trying to meet arbitrary standards of success. Instead, we focus on what truly matters to us and live our lives in a way that is meaningful and fulfilling. In doing so, we attract people and experiences that resonate with our true selves. We stop living for others and start living for ourselves, which is the only reliable way to truly experience happiness and fulfillment. Furthermore, when we stop seeking external validation, we begin to develop a deeper sense of self-love and self-respect. We realize that we are worthy of love and respect just as we are, and we don't need to change ourselves or meet others' expectations to earn that love. This self-love becomes the stable foundation for all other relationships in our lives. When we love and accept ourselves fully, we can form healthier, more authentic connections with others. We no longer seek validation from them because we already know, on a fundamental level, that we are enough. In essence, living without the need for external validation is about taking back our power and reclaiming our intrinsic sense of worth. It is about learning to trust ourselves, accepting ourselves unconditionally, and living authentically, free from the enslaving need for approval. When we stop seeking validation from the outside world, we begin to live in alignment with our true selves. And in doing so, we find a sense of peace, fulfillment, and joy that no external approval could ever provide. Now, take a deep breath and turn your attention inward. What is the one small step you can take today to honor your own truth over external expectations?